Okay, welcome. Sorry we're a bit late starting, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few problems with our video link, but anyway, ready to go now. So welcome to the 2020 Annual General Meeting for the New South Wales Permanent Way Institution. And our technical meeting for August is also being sponsored by WSP, which are one of our enhanced silver members. As President and Public Officer of the PWI, I'd like to officially welcome and thank all our corporate and enhanced members for joining us tonight, our general membership and any guests who are also attending, and personally I'd like to welcome anyone who's attending our AGM for the first time. If you're part of the small group here at the Sydney Masonic Centre or joining us on our Teams broadcast, welcome. Tonight I'll just, obviously we've got our AGM to run through. I've got some President updates after that. We also have the technical presentation for WSP following the AGM. So I'd like to now officially call our meeting to order. It's interesting, the past 6 months have indeed been a challenge for everyone as we battle and manage against the impacts of this global pandemic. All business have had to continually adapt and change. Personally, we've faced a lot of challenges working from home, homeschooling, or even continue to work on site with strict controls in place. And to ensure tonight that we're meeting the social distancing guidelines, we only have a maximum of 20 people attending the AGM in person here at the Masonic Centre, and everybody else is on a Teams meeting. This year's AGM will be run slightly different, obviously. There'll be slides and presentations on both the projector and on Teams. We'll take motions from the floor, and we did ask that any questions relating to the papers that were presented tonight, that if you sent those through by close of business yesterday. All reports for the AGM are also on the website. Okay, can I just take apologies, if there is any apologies? Anyone from the floor? No, I've got an apology from Claudine O'Donoghue, who's the Treasurer. She couldn't make it here tonight, so she's an apology. I have no other apologies. People here tonight have all had a signed on as part of the COVID plan, so we have all your information. And anyone who's signing up on the Teams meeting, we've got that officially recorded as well. The second item on the agenda tonight is the minutes of the 2019 AGM. The minutes of the AGM were posted on the PWI website. There's been no questions raised on the minutes. So can I move a motion that the minutes be accepted as a true and accurate record of the meeting? Can I get a proposer? Peter Boonstra, and a seconder? David Foldi. All in favour? Okay, thank you. Business arising from the 2019 minutes. There was no business arising from our 2019 minutes. I'll just now run into our committee reports. The first one will be the President's report. I'll just really touch on some of the highlights. Again, my report is on the website. But tonight, again, as I said, our AGM and technical meeting is being sponsored by WSP, as I said, who are one of our silver enhanced corporate members. I'd like to thank them again for their continued support. It's been a strong year for the PWI in New South Wales. Our membership remains strong. As a committee, we continue to focus on ensuring that we provide quality events that benefit all our members. This has obviously been a challenge over the last few months. Financially, the PWI continues to be in a strong position, and that's thanks to the continued support of our corporate members. An independent audit has been done of the PWI accounts, and that was done by Mark Vernon, who is the Director of Bromley Accounting. The audited accounts I'll run through in a moment, but will show a profit last year of $31,809 and accumulated members' funds of $463,774. I would like to thank our Treasurer and our Assistant Treasurer, Claudine O'Donoghue and Mark Butler, for the work that they've done over the past 12 months and the diligence in continually trying to improve and strengthening our internal controls and reporting systems following the implementation of the UM-wide OB accounting system. The past 12 months we've hosted 5 technical meetings and had a variety of papers and presentations, again excellently attended. Our last technical meeting was also a Teams meeting, and in the near future that's how we'll be running most of our meetings. I'd like to say our annual convention last year in Bathurst was probably one of our best for a long time. It's held on the 1st of November as we went to the bush to support and acknowledge the significant effort that our country rail network plays to the rail industry. The keynote speaker was Paul Toole, who was the Minister for Regional Transport and Roads and the member for Bathurst. I'd like to also thank Sydney Trains and New South Wales Trains for jointly sponsoring our special PWI train. Many of the delegates went up to Bathurst on the train, and we held a pre-registration event at Vorst Alpine's Rail Fabrication Centre in Bathurst. This included a tour of the facility where we saw their rail welding processes and the fabrication of turnouts. I'd also like to thank Steve Namoski and his subcommittee team for the work that they do in providing new ideas for our conventions. We were fortunate enough to get a social event in, which was our golf day just before the COVID shutdown. And again, Wade Perham and his team put on a great show for over 100 delegates. One thing to report, it's very sad that was the passing of Don Haggerty, a long-time rail servant of the rail industry. Don was instrumental to the PWI. He joined in 1974 and he was the first secretary of our association. He's been a great and loyal supporter of the PWI for many years, including a lot of work he's done since he retired. And as a tribute to Don, we'll be naming our new Cadet Program after him. So on behalf of the outgoing committee, I'd like to thank all those who support the PWI, and I'd finally like to thank all our members and corporate members for their continued support over the past 12 months. I'll just move on to the Treasurer's Report. As I said, Claudine couldn't make it here tonight, so I'm just going to deliver her report. So member numbers remain relatively strong, as did the support for our convention and social events throughout the first half of 1920. Unfortunately, we're not immune from the impacts of COVID-19, and as a result of social distancing regulations put in place by the New South Wales government has resulted in us in cancelling a number of events where we couldn't guarantee the safety of our people. A key factor for the lower revenue has been the cancellation of the annual winter dinner, which is held in normally June, and the other thing was that despite this position, we still maintained a profit and an increase in our overall net assets. As a summary, the revenue of $235,259 and an expenditure of $203,450 gave us an overall surplus for the year for $31,809 against a budgeted forecast of $49,995. Again, the main difference for that would have been the revenue from the winter dinner. Assets for 2019 were $431,965, and then with that profit margin, we now have accumulated assets of $463,774, despite this drop in revenue. Under the Constitution, Clause 9 of our Constitution requires that the Treasurer puts together papers and gets them signed off by our committee, and then we send them to an independent audit. So those accounts have now been signed off by the independent auditor. And just quickly, we are looking at a break-even budget next year, again with a few items that need to be moved into next financial year. So as I said, the accounts have been audited by Bromley Accounting. So the financial records are prepared internally by the Treasurer, as I said, and distributed around the committee for sign-off and approval before they're passed on to the external auditor. The auditor didn't find anything adverse in his findings, and an excerpt from his auditor's report states that, in our opinion, the accompanying financial reports of the association for the year ending 30th of June 2020 is prepared in all material aspects in accordance with the Association's Incorporation Act of 2019. So before I move on to the next slide, can I move a motion from the floor that the 2019-20 President's and Secretary's reports be accepted and that the audited accounts also be accepted? Can I get someone to move that? Julian Sharp, thank you. And seconder? Raquel, thank you. Can I record that the 2020 reports have been moved and accepted? In relation to general business, we've got no general business that has been raised under section 811 of our Constitution. So if I can just move on before I hand over to David Foldeye, who is going to be acting as our returning officer, I would like to thank a few people who are stepping down from our committee. We have 3 people stepping down this year. Peter Boonstra, who's just retired. I'd like to thank Peter personally for his invaluable contribution to the PWI over many years. Peter joined the PWI in the 1970s and is the longest serving committee member of the PWI, joining the committee in early 1990. Peter's had many roles in the PWI committee, including secretary and recently the membership secretary. He's also been on a number of awards and subcommittees. He'll be a big loss to our PWI. So thanks, Peter. Julian Collette is also standing down this year from the committee. She's been a member of a number of subcommittees for a number of years, and I'd like to thank her for her contribution, particularly in the technical meetings and convention subcommittees. And Juliette Murray is also elected to stand down from the committee this year as she's working in Perth, and it just doesn't work for her at the moment. So we'll hopefully see Juliette back when she comes back to Sydney. So on behalf of the members and the committee, I'd like to thank all you guys for the hard work that you've done and wish you all the best in the future. I'd like to now introduce David Foldeye. David is a technical executive for WSP and has supported the PWI over many years, particularly in this role as returning officer. So I'd now like to hand over to David, who will run the PWI elections. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks again for the opportunity to do this, Mark. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody, and those of you out there on the virtual world, good evening too. So nominations have been distributed this year prior to the AGM, with the notification of the AGM with no nominations taken from the floor. So here are the nominations for 2020. We have Mark Harris, Patrick Mann, Claudine O'Donoghue, Steve Namofsky, Mark Butler, Mark Sherry, Gareth Bainan, Scott Chapman, Dan Collison, Natalie Eve Gamble, Wade Perham, Raquel Rubicala. I always get her name wrong, sorry Raquel. So every time I do it, I practiced. Julian Sharp, David Spiteri, Mark White, Abdul Jamal, Jared Wakefield, Stewart Sutherland, Prath Nathakumaran, I practiced that one too, Sunil Hasnain and Ray Slaverio, a bit of a veritable who's who of the rail industry in New South Wales. So, Rule 7B of the Constitution provides for a committee of up to 15, but subject to a committee resolution, the numbers can be increased. The committee has resolved to accept the additional nominations to assist with the ever-increasing workload required to maintain the high-quality service provided to the membership. So, if there are no objections, I will declare all nominations accepted and elected to the committee. There's no objections and I can't see anything coming through from cyberspace, so well done. In addition to the committee members who are again standing for re-election, we've received 2 additional nominations. And that's Elaine Human, an executive quantity surveyor from MBM, and Lewis Rees, a project manager from Tactics. Both have agreed to join the PWI subcommittee for a 12-month period prior to join the full committee next year, as we currently have 20 on the committee. So we now move to the nominations of office bearers and authorised officers. So, under the Constitution, we elect office bearers, and that's this part of the session. So the following people are nominated for the 5 roles under the Constitution as office bearers. So Mark Harris has nominated as President. So no other nominations for President have been received. So I declare Mark Harris elected unopposed as President for 2020. And I'll let everyone applaud both here and at cyberspace at the end, I was about to say. But congratulations, Mark. Patrick Mann has nominated for the position of Secretary. And as we have no other nominations, Patrick Mann is elected as Secretary unopposed for 2020. Well done, Patrick. Claudine O'Donoghue has nominated for the position of Treasurer, and as we have no other nominations, Claudine O'Donoghue is elected as Treasurer unopposed for 2020. The role of Membership Secretary has been vacated by Peter Boonstra, so Steve Namovsky has nominated for the position of Membership Secretary, and as we have no other nominations, Steve is nominated as the Membership Secretary. Congratulations, Steve. Mark Sherry has nominated for the position of Editor, and we have no other nominations for Mark's position, so Mark Sherry is nominated unopposed. In addition to the office bearers, there are 2 roles who are also authorised officers and the financial signatories, and these roles are Mark Butler. Mark Butler is nominated for the position of Assistant Treasurer, and as we have no other nominations, Mark is elected as Assistant Treasurer unopposed. And Dan Collison has nominated for the position of Website Editor, and again we have no other nominations, so Dan Collison is elected as the Website Officer or Website Editor unopposed. And next, confirmation of the public officer and the final stage of this process. So under section 11 of the Constitution, Mark Harris as President of the PWI is appointed as the public officer of the PWI. The public officer is both the official point of contact for incorporated association, and one of the authorised signatories. Confirming the office bearers then, we have Mark Harris, Patrick Mann, Claudine O'Donoghue, Steve Namovsky and Mark Sherry are confirmed as office bearers, which relates to all official dealings of the PWI and financial signatories as per the Constitution. That's financial, statutory, legal, etc. So, in addition to the office bearers, the following are nominated as authorised officers and financial signatories. That's Mark Butler and Dan Collison. So, can I move a motion from the floor confirming Mark Harris, Patrick Mann, Claudine O'Donoghue, Steve Namovsky and Mark Sherry be confirmed to the Office of Fair Trading as the office bearers? So, moved by Peter Boonstra and seconded by someone, Mark Butler. So thank you. So all in favour? Yep. I can hear the deafening roar from cyberspace. So thank you all. So congratulations on the new committee. I'll hand back over to Mark, your newly elected president. So thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Again, thank you for being our returning officer again for probably the 5th year now. Appreciate it, mate. Okay, just got a few slides I'd like to run through to give you a bit of an update of where we are with the PWI before I hand over to WSP to do our technical presentation for the evening. Just like to acknowledge All Track Light Rail, particularly Neil Johnson and Glenn Bentley, who presented our last meeting in July. Another excellent presentation about the project, the Sydney Light Rail, and a lot of the challenges that that's had and some of the great outcomes that they've picked up. Unfortunately, as we said, the winter dinner has to have been postponed. It'll be on again, hopefully in 2021. But unfortunately, you know, it's a big event. We normally get upwards of 250 people attending that. In the current climate, that we just couldn't go ahead with that event, so it was cancelled. The same with the executive breakfast, a smaller boutique meeting of a shorter group of people, probably about 80 senior people from the industry. We had a great speaker in Howard Collins and another one in Alexandra Windler, which would have been an excellent morning, but unfortunately, again, had to be postponed. The annual convention at this stage is still, full speed ahead. We have a theme called Bursting the Bubble. We're looking at the disruption and the innovation in the world of rail. So a really interesting topic. At this stage, we are planning to have that at the Fullerton, and that is still our plan, and a post-convention networking event at the Ivy. Now, again, that'll be dependent on how things move in New South Wales and the numbers that we're allowed to have an event. So we're going to work from either our first position is a full convention exactly the same way as we would normally run them, with whatever social distancing we would require. The second one would be that we have a hybrid where we have a smaller number of people and we stream it live. The final one would be that we just virtually have the presenters and then we stream it as a live event. But irrespective of that, we will be running our annual convention. The only thing that may change is whether we actually have all of the awards announced at the convention. If that does change and we have to have a streaming event, we might look at the awards being postponed into 2021 and run that as a special awards night. Technical meetings, the next one, just wanted to highlight that Delcor is sponsoring that, and that'll be on the 12th of November. And again, that'll be a Teams live broadcast. Membership, quite healthy. We could certainly do with more corporate members, but 50 financial, 5 awaiting payment. We still have 4 golds. We actually have 5 golds, not 3, 4 platinums and 15 silvers, and a healthy membership. Now, the membership normally goes up quite significantly because most people tend to book and pay their membership when they go to the convention. Also want to recognise a couple of new corporate members. Obviously, All Track Rail has joined as a silver enhanced member, so thank them. And we've got Willow Rail and Calibre Group have just joined in the last couple of weeks, so welcome to the PWI. I spoke earlier about the cadet program that the PWI is running. We really want to put things back into the industry, so the committee has agreed that we will sponsor 3 cadets per year for the next few years and put $10,000 towards their course and get them to complete a Certificate 3 in Perway. The first intake that we're looking at will be in January 2021, coinciding with the start of the university season. The cadets will also complete the minimum 12-week industry experience per year. And the way that we want to do that is run that through the PWI and our members and our corporate members to provide opportunities for those people to get experience across a whole facet of the rail industry: design, construction, supply. So the PWI, Stewart Sutherland is running that, and if anyone's got any ideas or would like to, particularly from a corporate point of view, like to support, would appreciate that. And as I said, we're going to name the cadet program after the late Don Haggerty. We've got 2 social media sites up and running now on Instagram and LinkedIn. Mark Cherry done a great job of our latest newsletter. That's up and running, and snippets of that will start to float through on our social media accounts as well. Would be remiss of me if I didn't comment on our enhanced members of the PWI that assist us to run these events and our ongoing support. So our platinum members, we have 4: CPB, John Holland, Lang O'Rourke and Len Lease. As I said, we have 5 golds. There are 3 others available. So All Track, Pandrol, Brimble Rail, Progress Rail and Quickway. Our silver members are Abergoldie, Agonis Group, Arch Artifacts, Arabs, Coleman Rail, Comworks, Hayes, JMDR, Lycopodium, Plaza Australia, Rail Planning Services, SMEC, Spino, Transport for New South Wales, and of course WSP, who will be sponsoring tonight's technical meeting. So that really brings us to the close of our AGM. Thank you for attending. We will now run straight into our technical meeting. But just before I do that, I would like to just acknowledge a couple of people. So we have 3 people in our technical subcommittee that run the subcommittees, that run the technical subcommittees. And that's Prath Nanthrakumaran, Dan Collison and Julian Cottle. So the 3 of these people do a great job behind the scenes setting up these meetings. So I'd like to just thank them for all the work that they do behind the scenes with these technical meetings. Thank you. That gives me the opportunity now to introduce our keynote speakers for tonight. We have two. Got Brenden McFarlane and Tom Mitchell, both from WSP, who I said is sponsoring tonight, and they'll be presenting a digital engineering practice presentation. I'm just talking, Patrick will set them up for them. So I'd just like to introduce Brenden. Brenden is a digital engineering lead at a data analytical and automation team for WSP. He's got more than 40 years of experience in developing build assets, information technology, and BIM. He's worked on large-scale infrastructure projects in the transport sector, including Hong Kong, MTR, Singapore MTR, Central Lines. He's also worked on the Changi Airport and the T5 tunnels and the Sydney Metro. Brenden will be presenting an overall approach to digital engineering on the maintenance facilities projects and how this supports the engineering design and project delivery. Tom Mitchell is a PWI engineer from WSP with experience in conventional metro high-speed railways. Tom's career to date has seen him work on projects in the UK and Australia, including maintenance facilities from feasibility to design. He has a broad knowledge of PWI design and the applications of digital engineering for maintenance facility projects. Tom will discuss how digital engineering can be used in permanent way design for maintenance facilities. He will also use clash detection processes on external works disciplines to challenge the associates with the designs of maintenance facilities. But I believe before that, we've got a representative from WSP to just say a few words, and I don't know your name, Stewart. Stewart, hand over to Stewart. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to the PWI for allowing us to sponsor this event. Just to reiterate what Mark said, it's extraordinary times we find ourselves in. I think it's really important that we still meet to share ideas on innovation and some of the great projects that we're working on around the nation. So as Mark mentioned, we're going to present on our approach to digital engineering using a case study of a maintenance depot that we're currently working on. Just to start off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, both in person here in Sydney and online too. Oops. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present and emerging. Sorry, the display isn't quite what I'm seeing on the screen. You don't want to see that, Mark.
Tell us what the location you work.
Sorry?
Tell us what the location you work.
So WSP is a Canadian company. People often ask what WSP stands for. It's Williams Sales Partnership. We're based in Canada. Got around 60,000 people worldwide and around 5,500. Thank you. 5,500 in Australia and New Zealand. So here, just a few statistics on us. New South Wales rail team is about 70 people, split between Sydney and Newcastle. In Sydney, we've got 15 track engineers, and we work on a variety of projects. So everything from light rail, inland rail, Sydney Metro, and everything from feasibility through to detailed design and installation. So topics we're going to run through today, just a brief introduction. Brendan's going to be our first speaker, speaking on a bit of a project overview, our approach to using digital engineering, those workflows, and then Tom will touch on coordination between multidisciplines, using track as a bit of a focus area. And then, touching on some of the tools we've developed, both internally and some of the software we use too. So I won't spend too much time on this. Mark gave a great introduction. Brendan's been with our WSP business in Australia for 2 years. We moved over from Hong Kong, where he's got some great experience both in the Middle East and Southeast Asia on a variety of rail projects. And Tom's also been with us for around 2 years, moved over from the UK. Yep, another great guy to have in our team. Worked on a number of projects, both high-speed rail, depot design and various other things. So I'll hand over to Brenden for the next part. Thanks, Brenden.
Well, I'm going to run through a quick project overview. What we're going to show you today is a case study of how we approach digital engineering, and we've done so on a particular project. So this particular project is a purpose-built maintenance facility which provides a dedicated space for the stabling and maintenance of a new fleet of trains. It comprises a fleet maintenance building which has 3 tracks to undertake the maintenance activities, partly within a housed and covered enclosure. We have a wheel lathe, separate building allowing for the train wheels to be periodically machined using an underfloor wheel lathe. There is a train wash, which is an enclosed structure comprising an automated wash equipment for train sets with a nearby wastewater treatment plant. There is an administration building with car park and security gates, and then finally storage areas and a loading dock with fuel delivery areas used for the delivery and storage of plants and equipment and fuel. So in terms of the project scope, in terms of WSP's scope on the project, we pretty much covered all of the engineering on the project, including the overall digital engineering management role. There was a team of around 240 worked on the project, and it had a duration of around 18 months to IFC. So I'm going to take you a little inside the building and the structures and have a look at what goes on in there. So this is the maintenance building, and it was an area that benefited significantly from the DE coordination process, as there were a high concentration of systems and equipment to incorporate into this facility. The wheel lathe is an example of benefits of using a DE approach to the design, as changes to the rail vertical alignment were made on the project at quite a late stage, but we were able to manage that quite in a more straightforward way than you would normally do using a traditional CAD system-based approach. So the reason being that the changes to the architectural model, which incorporated these height change, cascaded through all of the other associated models, which meant that we ended up having all of those models raising in parallel, and then all of their associated deliverable documentation, all of the drawings that came out from those models, was also automatically updated. This is a huge benefit. Biowash building. So this is an example of we were using a federated model for the whole project, so the overall project, which allowed it to be reviewed, interrogated and understood by all of the members of the team throughout the entire process. And it was also used for presentations and engagement with other stakeholders. An example of that it was used in a recent human factors workshop for the client, supported by the WSP digital engineering staff. So now I'm going to go through and talk to you a little bit about the digital engineering systems that we deployed. So we'll start with the collaborative platform. So a large part of this DE scope involves the setting up and managing of digital collaborative platforms that allow the team members to share information securely and ensuring everyone has access to validated project documents, models and drawings as the so-called single source of truth. These tools include both web-based and mobile device access, in addition to the normal desktop applications. The first of these tools I'll talk about is Projectwise. This was a central common data environment, or CDE, for the project, and was hosted all of the documentation and deliverables. It's a cloud-based system, and it supports digital engineering workflows, which I'll talk a little bit about shortly, and provided automation that made the production of the CAD deliverables seamless and efficient. Projectwise is a secure platform and has strict access controls, which avoids any unauthorized access to the information. As the Autodesk Revit models that we delivered on the project don't work very efficiently within Projectwise, we separately used a BIM 360 platform, which is an Autodesk system, which was used to deploy and manage these Revit models. Additionally, 12D, which is used for civil design, was hosted in the 12D Synergy platform for the same reasons. So I'm going to talk a little bit about BIM 360 and the benefits it brings to the project. So it allows the teams to collaborate effectively using, again, cloud-based workflows, and the processes for sharing and consumption of models from other disciplines. This is a really key factor. So models that are shared on the platform become available for review by the other teams, by the other disciplines, for coordination, and can be interrogated to understand any changes that have happened in those models. We can see these graphically, and you can see a little bit of it here where it shows the difference between model elements that have been added, model elements that have been deleted, and those that have changed. So it's very easy to understand what's been happening. And it means that the disciplines can review the changes and then elect whether they need to share that information or use that information as coordination, which was necessary because of the way the project's program was set out. They were running to slightly different schedules, so there wasn't always a good idea to absorb information from the architect, for example, if they are somewhat further advanced. So we also hosted all of the federated models on the project on BIM 360, and the PDF outputs that were used for review, and those were available for everyone that worked on the project. So the process by which we pull everything together is pretty simple. We take all of these models, and there's a lot of them. We had around 39 on the project, and then we bring them together into a single container, which is a Navisworks model. This allows us to see any issues in terms of coordination that occurred between any of these models, between the different disciplines. We do this on a weekly basis, and that's used, that information that we gather from this exchange is used to look at what coordination issues we need to focus on. So to manage that process, we have a tool called BIMTrack. Now, BIMTrack is another cloud-based system, and it's used for issue management, so that when there's an issue detected in this federated model between the different disciplines, we can flag it up as an issue and put it into the system. We can assign it to a person and determine what level of criticality it has. So how soon do they have to fix it? Now, this information is not just sitting up in the cloud, it's also available on the desktop within the environments in which people are building these models. So if you've got an issue that affects something you're working on, it's available to you inside your Revit or your Plan 3D or other application right in front of you, and it highlights the particular issue within the model that you have to fix. This is a really good time saver. I'm going to have a look at some of the project workflows that we used. These are sort of the glue that binds the project together. Really important. So this complex series of blocks and lines is the overall workflow that we had on the project. It looks complex. In reality, it's not too complex. It's all about passing information through different stage gates to get it to the end and ensuring everybody's getting the right information. Now, this process follows a standard called PAS BS 1192, which is a UK standard, which actually came about from the Heathrow Terminal 5 project a long time ago. This has now morphed into what we now know as ISO 19650, which is the global version of that original standard. Okay, so moving on to have a look at some of the core of what this process means. So right at the heart of this system is a series of stage gates, or gates that the information flows through between the different disciplines, different stakeholders on the project. At the core is the work in progress area. This is where everybody has their own dedicated space. And only those team members on that discipline have access to that. This is very important because you don't want people diving in to look at information that's maybe work in progress, maybe it's just a study that somebody's doing. So to ensure that when you do use information, it's actually current and valid. So this is the important factor. So moving from work in progress, you go into the shared area. And this is something where you share that information through. There's a gate between the two, has to be validated from the content and the technical accuracy. And then that means what you get on the other side is information that's shared, which is accurate and you can rely on. And finally, it goes through from there, once we're at the approval stage, into the published area. This is where it gets passed out into the wider project and over to the client. So this is the nucleus of how that all works. So in terms of coordination, class resolution, this is obviously one of the sort of low-hanging fruits of this whole process. And disciplines normally have the responsibility to ensure that their models are coordinated with them themselves and also with the other disciplines. But invariably, issues fall through the cracks, and this is where the DE coordinator's role comes in. He picks those up, extracts those issues, and passes them through the chain, through BIMTrack, through the Federated Model for everyone to work with and resolve those issues. And then finally, periodically through the project, we do a series of model audits. We take a model and then we run them through some automatic checking, but also some visual checking to ensure everything's okay. And this ensures that what we end up with at the end of the project is a quality set of deliverables. So thank you for that. And with that, I'll hand over to Tom, who's going to take you through how the DE is used within the track design.
Thank you, Brenden. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you about how digital engineering can be used to help the track design and maintenance facilities, and I'll also touch on coordinating some of those external works 3D models. So for any project, pretty much everything in the track structure can be modelled in 3D to help with the track design itself and the coordination with other disciplines. I'm going to run through some of the tools we use at WSP to model some of those components, including the rails, the ballast, the kinematic envelope, the sleepers, and the turnouts. So to start with, we use OpenRail Designer to model some of the continuous components, such as the rails and ballast. And the benefits of OpenRail is that it allows parametric civil geometry for a more interactive way of modelling. It has enhanced template features. It enables you to cut live sections through the model, so you can build up a better picture of how the model fits together and some of the adjacent infrastructure. And it also allows you to export to IFC files for better coordination with other disciplines working on different software platforms. So the image there shows a model of the ballast profile through a yard, with the top left quarter showing that live section window, allowing you to build up a picture of how the cross walls of the ballast fits together with a capping layer to enable it works from a drainage perspective. So one of the most important parts of the track 3D model is the kinematic envelope. At WSP, we have an in-house tool called ClearPath, and this allows you to select any rolling stock outline. It applies the track and vehicle tolerances, and then outputs a kinematic envelope, and then it then plots that along the track alignment and gives you a 3D envelope. So the top left image there shows the interface of the tool, where you can select a rolling stock outline, apply the parameters depending on what design standards you're using, and then the right hand side picture shows the finished product, which is a 3D envelope of a maintenance facility for the various slab and ballasted sections of track. So this shows a cross section through a maintenance facility building with the kinematic envelopes in green, and you can see how useful that must be for such a constrained site and a constrained building with so many interfacing disciplines. It allows you to take clash detection tests against that KE envelope for instant results on any gauge infringements, and it also allows you to help set out any line side infrastructure. For example, those roof level platforms. It allows you to get a very good picture of what that gap, what that step might look like, crossing that gap onto the roof of the train to inspect any roof mounted equipment. I'll now move on to generative components, which is a Bentley piece of software. It allows you to undertake computational design, whereby in the bottom half of the screen there, that's the graph space where you build up various relationships and parametric constraints between components, and then that essentially outputs into the 3D model space, which is shown in the top half of the screen. So the model shown here is what we use to place sleepers in 3D. So this essentially is where you can select your sleeper type, and it places the sleeper at the designated spacing, allowing for any curvature and super elevation. So we use a similar model for the placement of 3D turnouts. Works in a similar way, with the right-hand picture showing the turnouts placed on an entrance to a yard. And the great thing about this tool, it allows very quick iterations, and it's very powerful because of that. And it allows you to build up some very complex models as well. It can really be used to model anything. So the bottom left-hand picture is another example of where it's been used to model the pedestals and maintenance pits. And the bottom right-hand picture is where it's been used to model overhead wiring structures within a tunnel. So bringing all of those items together, you can build up a pretty comprehensive track 3D model for a maintenance facility to help with the track design itself and coordination with other disciplines in the project. And as discussed, all of those models are live models, so they're all associated with a track geometry. So any changes in track alignment throughout the project, which inevitably happens, those 3D models can very easily be reassociated with that new track alignment and updated very easily. So there's a little bit of upfront work with some of those models, but throughout the project, any changes can be easily incorporated. So that track 3D model would then be exported as an IFC or NWC to be used on other software platforms with other disciplines to help with their design coordination. And then it can also be included within software such as Navisworks to form part of the Federated Model. And there it will undertake model review, clash detection tests, and design issue tracking using software such as BIMTrack, which Brenden mentioned earlier in his slides. So across the maintenance facility project, there are lots of interfacing disciplines, all using various software platforms. Just to name a few, is on the left hand of the screen, all with their own unique characteristics of only reading in certain file types and some file types not working with certain software platforms. And also they have their own benefits of working with their own particular common data environments. Some of them shown on the right hand side of the screen. So I guess one of the key things for a project like this is to manage the file types being used for various software platforms and the control and flow of information across those common data environments on a tool, which can be done using some of those processes that Brenden mentioned earlier. So thank you for listening. That was everything I had to say. Now I'll hand you back over to Mike for the Q&A.
Thanks, guys. There was one question that was asking whether I was flagging trains through. I think that probably you're picking up all the noise of the trains under this Masonic Centre here, where I think it's the Cologne eggs or whatever have failed, or the track slope particularly has failed, and you get a huge amount of noise. So if you're getting that feedback through to you at home, you can imagine what it's like in here. So to answer the question, no, I'm not flagging trains. There was a couple of good questions. One of them was, what systems are used for, is this system used for safety and design? Would one of you guys like to answer that?
Yes, on a regular basis. So yes, on a regular basis in safety and design workshops, the models will be regularly used. So the example I gave on the step across the gap onto the roof of the train, so that's a good example of where it would be used in a safety and design workshop.
Got a few others. Another question that come through was around, are we using this for your staging and as used for as-built as well?
Yes, I believe so. Brenden, will you be able to give more information on that?
Take his mask off.
Yeah. Yes, the models that we've finished up in terms of design, once they're handed over to the contractor, they'll be taken forward and ultimately be further developed and enhanced into shop models effectively, and then ultimately ending up in the operator's hands as an as-built model, including all of the asset information within it. This is normal practice. And in terms of staging, generally, yes, the models can also be used for staging, so separate models used, but using different versions or a different addition to a model, and there are facilities within the software to allow you to have that comparison and use and create staging from the same models.
There's a little bit of shuffling going on here to keep our distance. Another question is, which is an interesting one, around signal sighting. Do you use this model for signal signing, and can you use it to get actual sign-off, like when you do that with unions and so forth?
Yes, it is being used as a tool to assist signal sighting, but no, it can't be, from my understanding, it can't be used for sign-off for that signal sighting, so they'll still have to undergo their normal practices for that, but it's still very useful to have as a tool to help.
Another question was, how do you work through when you've got 3 or 4 different management systems? How do you integrate all that?
So we use a series of workflows. So in terms of when, if you consider the diagram I looked at where you have a work in progress area, each of those different systems represent a work in progress area. So the Revit models are work in progress within their environment. Similarly for the 12D models and the Bentley models that are created within Projectwise. Now when they're shared, those shared models are automatically shifted between the platforms so that people are able to see them within their own environment. We have some processes in place that allows us to do that.
One of the other questions that's just been raised is Transport ready to use these planning tools, I suppose, as deliverables, or where do you think that's going?
That's a cracker of a question, actually. I think not yet, but it is a goal of certainly the Simon Vaux's framework, digital engineering framework, that they want to see this as an ultimate methodology for the way in which we develop rail infrastructure going forward. Interestingly, from a tender we've been looking at internally, there's come a requirement that the initial 30% deliverable, instead of being 2D drawings, we can use a digital deliverable as a model rather than a whole series of drawings. And this is a great step and it's just the kind of thing we need to see.
I suppose we've all been involved with BIM and different developments of seeing how these have progressed, and particularly some companies are more advanced than others. From a WSP point of view, where do you guys see this going in the next 5 years?
The whole BIM thing, digital engineering, call it what you like, is a work in progress. However, sort of around the corner, sort of looking 5 years down the line, I think there's new innovations coming forward. There's something called a digital twin, which is kind of the next generation of what we do, which is using these digital engineering models as part of a digital twin of a system, of a facility. This would incorporate not just the models, but also real-time sensors. So Internet of Things sensors to allow you to simulate the function and operation of that system within this digital twin. You'll maybe see more coming out about this over the next year or so, but it is something that's definitely going to happen. There is a recent New South Wales edict on digital transformation that's come through, which has imposed a requirement on all projects since July that are over 10 million investment, both new projects and upgrades, that have to incorporate IoT sensors within their infrastructure. So that's going to be the basis on which we do this.
Okay, thanks. We've got another question. Really relates to expanding it to that next step, which is, from a construction point of view, program and cost. Just are you using that as part of your, like a lot of clash detection and getting the design right, but are we using it also for program and cost? And I suppose in taking it to the next step, does the information we provide give you an asset management system that can be used?
Again, very good question. Within what we do as WSP at the design stage, there isn't an awful lot that we can do in terms of the cost management and the planning for the way in which these projects are delivered by the construction companies. However, the construction companies are taking these models and using them to help them in those cost management and sequencing, the 4D sequencing of their installations to give a better insight into the way in which they deliver the project. In terms of assets, the asset information grows gradually during the whole process. So at the early stages, it's just a concept. So we need a thing, and then going forward, more and more information is added into the model, and it's improved until at final you have all of the information about its warranty, and who supplied it, and its serial numbers, and all of the information can be captured in the model.
Can't go yet. This depot, is it operational yet, or is it still under construction?
It's under construction.
Okay.
Can't see.
Okay. We do have any more questions from the floor? We've had quite a few questions come through through the Teams event, but and some questions we actually couldn't understand. So apologies if we haven't related those. But Abdul, yeah.
Yeah. What's the frequency that you would be undertaking clash detection? So how often would the designers kind of put their model into the BIM 360 and then?
So the question raised from the floor was more around clash detection and how often we're doing clash detection monitoring as part of the design.
Okay. That's a valid question. It very much depends on the project stage. At the early stages of a project, there's a lot of study work going on. There's not a lot of benefit in doing it then. However, the closer you get, for example, to a specific deliverable date, then you have to definitely ramp up in the way in which you bring the models together. So initially you might be looking at a 2-week frequency. As you're getting towards a major deliverable, that could increase to maybe twice a week.
There's another question around brownfields projects where he's seeing clients interested in picking up any of that brownfield asset information as part of the design and actually want to pay for that.
Yeah, that asset information, generally it's part of a survey process that goes on, and the way we would incorporate that into our designs is that we would receive that survey data, whatever form it is, and use that as informing our design going forward. So typically we would have maybe a 3D scan of existing facilities to allow us to understand what we have to deal with when we come to interface with these existing infrastructure. So yes, there is a cost involved in that, obviously, but it's always considered as part of the project and informs what we do.
Okay, any other questions from the floor? Well, I think we might wrap it up there if we can, guys. Great presentation, thanks for coming. I'd like to really thank WSP again as one of our enhanced silver members of the PWI corporate members. Thanks for your great support. Great presentation. Digital engineering, BIM, whatever you want to call it, is certainly moving along in leaps and bounds over the last few years, and it's great to see from a project point of view, particularly on these complex projects where this asset identification and clash detection is done before we actually start to build the thing. So great presentation, really interesting around track work, particularly from a per-way point of view, kinematic clearances, that whole track design and getting it right the first time, particularly in a depot, has to be really significant. You can see that in tunnels as well, it would be significant. So would you mind joining with me, everybody, in thanking both Tom and Brenden and Stewart for also their presentation tonight. So thank you. So I hope everyone enjoyed tonight. Thank you for attending either on Teams or the few people that were here in person at the Masonic Centre. So thanks, guys. Our next meeting is on the 12th of December, I think, and that's with Delcor. So the way things are running, I'm sure that will be a live stream event as well. I talked about the convention earlier. As I said, we're still full steam ahead with the convention. We will let you know where we are. Probably in around September, we'll make a decision on what we do with that. So keep in touch. As I said, Abdul's looking after our social media platform now, so there'll be lots of information starting to pop up on those sites. And Mark Cherry, who's also putting the newsletters together. I think he sent that one out only earlier this week, so if you get a chance to see that, it's a great document. So thanks again, Mark. And thank you to WSP and particularly David Foldeye for being our returning officer tonight. Thanks, everyone. Have a safe night. Bye-bye.